There was a moment during the Cold War when the fate of millions could depend on a single decision made in seconds. No warning, no time to react, just a signal and a countdown. Because in a nuclear world, the most dangerous weapon wasn't the one that was used. It was the one that could be used at any moment, hidden, ready, waiting. And if that weapon could be launched instantly from anywhere without being stopped, it could change everything. This is the story of the missile system designed to ensure that moment never came. The system that didn't just prepare for war, it prevented it. This is the story of the Minuteman. By the early years of the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union had entered a new phase of competition. Nuclear weapons had transformed warfare. No longer limited to battlefields, conflict now carried the possibility of global destruction. Cities, infrastructure, entire nations, all vulnerable in ways that had never existed before. But nuclear weapons alone didn't define the balance. Delivery systems did, because having a weapon meant little if it couldn't reach its target. And as technology advanced, both sides began developing ways to deliver nuclear payloads faster, farther, and with greater precision. Bombers were the first step, aircraft capable of carrying nuclear weapons across continents. But they had limitations. They could be detected, intercepted, stopped before reaching their targets. That vulnerability created uncertainty. And in the Cold War, uncertainty was dangerous. Because if one side believed it could strike first and eliminate the other's ability to respond, the balance would collapse. The risk of war would increase. For the United States, this problem became critical. A system was needed that could not be intercepted easily, that could not be stopped once launched, and most importantly, that could respond immediately, without delay, without hesitation. The concept was simple in theory, but complex in execution. Intercontinental ballistic missiles, weapons capable of traveling across the globe in minutes, launched from fixed positions, reaching targets with speed and precision that made interception nearly impossible. But early missile systems had their own limitations. They required time to prepare, time to fuel, time to launch. And in a nuclear scenario, time was the one thing that could not be guaranteed. The United States needed something different. A system that could respond instantly. A system that was always ready. A system that could not be neutralized before it acted. That system became the Minuteman, named for the idea of readiness at a moment's notice. The Minuteman missile represented a shift in strategy. Instead of relying on preparation, it relied on constant readiness. Solid fuel propulsion allowed the missile to remain fueled at all times, stored in underground silos, protected, hidden, and ready to launch within minutes. This wasn't just an improvement, it was a transformation, because now the United States had a capability that changed the equation entirely. Even if an adversary launched a first strike, the response would still come. Fast, decisive, unstoppable. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where strategy and technology combine to prevent the unthinkable, consider subscribing. Because what the Minuteman system created wasn't just a weapon, it was a guarantee. A guarantee that any attack would be met with response. And in the Cold War, that guarantee was the difference between tension and total war. Once the Minuteman system began to take shape, its impact extended far beyond the missile itself. Because this wasn't just a weapon, it was an entire network. A system built to ensure that response was always possible, no matter the circumstances. Across the United States, missile silos were constructed in remote locations, spread over vast distances, carefully positioned to reduce vulnerability. Each silo housed a single missile, buried deep underground, protected by reinforced structures designed to withstand extreme force. From above, they were almost invisible, simple patches of land, minimal activity, nothing that revealed what lay beneath. But below the surface, everything was ready. Each missile remained in a constant state of readiness, fueled, maintained, connected to a command structure that could activate it within minutes. This was the key difference. Unlike earlier systems, there was no need for preparation, no delay. The moment an order was given, the system could respond. But the missile itself was only part of the equation. The real strength of the Minuteman system came from how it was controlled. Launch control centers were placed underground, staffed by trained crews operating in shifts around the clock. Officers who monitored systems continuously, who followed strict procedures, who were prepared to act if the moment ever came. Inside those control centers, the environment was controlled, quiet, focused, every action governed by protocol, because the responsibility was enormous. These weren't routine operations. These were decisions that, if executed, would have irreversible consequences. Security was absolute, multiple layers of authentication, redundant communication systems, safeguards designed to prevent unauthorized action. Because in a system this powerful, control had to be precise, every order verified, every step confirmed. And yet, despite all of this control, the speed remained. From the moment a valid launch order was received, the countdown could begin almost immediately. Missile silo doors would open, the rocket would ignite, and within seconds, the missile would leave the ground, accelerating beyond the atmosphere, carrying its payload across continents, all in a matter of minutes. For the United States, this created something unprecedented, a response capability that could not be neutralized easily because the silos were distributed, hundreds of them, spread across wide areas. An adversary couldn't target all of them simultaneously with certainty. Even if some were destroyed, others would remain, and those remaining missiles would be enough. That was the principle. Not invulnerability, but survivability. Because as long as some part of the system remained intact, the response would still come, and that certainty shaped strategy. Because now, the question wasn't just about attacking, it was about what would happen after. And the answer was clear: there would be retaliation. At the same time, the system introduced a new level of pressure, because speed worked both ways. The same rapid response capability that ensured deterrence also reduced decision time. Leaders would have minutes, not hours, to assess a situation, to determine whether an attack was real, to decide how to respond. That reality added tension, because mistakes could have consequences that extended far beyond the immediate moment. And yet, the system remained, maintained, refined, integrated into a broader structure that included bombers and submarines, each component supporting the others, creating a balance where no single vulnerability could compromise the whole. If you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where every decision carried global consequences, consider subscribing, because what the Minuteman system represented wasn't just readiness, it was responsibility. Because the power to respond instantly also meant the responsibility to ensure that response was never used by mistake. Still, despite all its safeguards, despite all its precision, the true test of the system wasn't in its construction. It was in how it would perform under the most extreme conditions imaginable, when uncertainty was at its highest, when time was at its shortest, and when the decision could not be undone. The true weight of the Minuteman system wasn't felt in its construction. It was felt in the moments when it almost had to be used. There were times during the Cold War when warning systems lit up, radar contact appeared, signals suggested incoming missiles, moments where the difference between peace and catastrophe came down to interpretation. Seconds stretched into minutes. Decisions had to be made quickly, because if an attack was real, waiting too long could mean losing the ability to respond. And if it wasn't, acting too soon could trigger the very war everyone was trying to avoid. Inside launch control centers, crews trained constantly for those scenarios. Simulations, procedures repeated until they became instinct, every step defined, every action rehearsed. Because when the moment came, there would be no time to hesitate. Officers would receive coded messages, authenticate orders, prepare for execution, keys ready, systems aligned, everything in place. The process was designed to be precise, deliberate, controlled, but it was also designed to be fast, because speed was the foundation of deterrence. The faster the response, the more certain it became, and certainty was what kept the system stable. But that speed also created pressure, because not every warning was real. There were false alarms, technical anomalies, signals that looked like threats but weren't, moments where the system indicated danger that didn't exist. And in those moments, the entire structure of deterrence depended on judgment, on discipline, on the ability to pause just long enough to verify, without waiting so long that the opportunity to respond would be lost. It was a balance that had no margin for error. And yet, time after time, that balance held. Decisions were made carefully. Verification processes worked. And the system did what it was designed to do. Not launch, but hold, because the purpose of the Minuteman system was never to be used. It was to exist, to be ready, to ensure that if the worst happened, the response would follow. But in doing so, it created a constant presence, an invisible pressure that shaped how both sides acted, because the Soviet Union understood what the system represented. Hundreds of missiles, ready, dispersed, capable of launching within minutes. Any attempt to strike first would not eliminate the response. And that knowledge influenced everything. Planning, strategy, risk assessment. Because no matter how advanced their capabilities became, they had to account for what remained. And what remained was enough. That was the power of the system, not in its use, but in its existence. At the same time, the United States continued refining it, improving accuracy, enhancing reliability, strengthening command and control, because maintaining the system wasn't a one-time effort. It was continuous, evolving alongside the threats it was designed to counter. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where the most critical moments happen in silence, behind closed doors, consider subscribing, because what the Minuteman system demonstrated wasn't just technological strength, it was strategic control. Because in a world where decisions had to be made in minutes, control was everything. Still, even with that control, the system carried a constant reality that at any moment it could be activated, and once it was, there would be no turning back. In the end, the Minuteman system was never defined by a launch. It was defined by restraint, because despite its speed, its power, and its constant readiness, it was never used in war. And that was the point. The system had been built to ensure that if a conflict ever began, it would not end without consequence. But in doing so, it created something more powerful than the weapon itself. It created certainty. Certainty that any attack would be answered. Certainty that no advantage could eliminate the response. And in the Cold War, that certainty became the foundation of stability. The United States didn't rely on a single system. It built a structure. Missiles, submarines, bombers, each capable of delivering a response, each reinforcing the others. Together, they formed a balance where no single action could tip the scale completely. The Minuteman system played a central role in that balance because it was always there, always ready, always part of the equation, hidden beneath the surface of everyday life, but never absent. For the Soviet Union, that presence required constant consideration. Any decision had to account for it. Any plan had to include it, because it couldn't be ignored, and it couldn't be removed. That was the true power of the system, not destruction, but influence, because it shaped behavior, introduced caution, slowed escalation. In a world where speed could lead to catastrophe, it forced restraint. At the same time, it revealed something deeper about the nature of the Cold War. That strength wasn't just about capability. It was about control, the ability to build systems that were powerful enough to deter, but stable enough to manage, the ability to maintain readiness without losing discipline, because the same speed that made the system effective also made it dangerous. And managing that balance required more than technology. It required training, procedure, judgment, every day, across decades. Today, the legacy of the Minuteman system continues. Modern versions remain in service, updated, refined, still part of the strategic structure that defines deterrence, because the principle hasn't changed. Readiness, reliability, response, the idea that stability can be maintained not by removing capability, but by ensuring that it cannot be ignored. Because in the end, the most powerful weapons of the Cold War weren't always the ones that were used. They were the ones that were never used because everyone understood what would happen if they were. If you found this story as compelling as we did, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Because some of the most important forces in history aren't the ones that act. They're the ones that prevent action in the first place.